Chapter 15. Don't look now, but everything is about to change, warned Agatha Swanburne, and the wise woman was right, as usual. The fickle fulcrum of fortune had seesawed back again, and this time Penelope was on the upward-bound seat. In terms of luck, one might say the incorrigible children and Simon were zooming skyward as well, for soon they would all be enjoying the premiere performance of Pirates on Holiday from the luxurious comfort of the royal box. 5 tickets, free of charge! This was an unexpected development indeed. Perhaps it was the abrupt change in altitude, but Penelope was practically lightheaded with joy. However, she hadn't completely lost her grip. She knew it was much stick. That word is hard for me. Too much stick to think they might get through the evening without running into the Ashtons, or to imagine that such an encounter would be anything less than extremely unpleasant. What explanation would she give for her presence at the Drury Lane Theatre? The truth is always best, she concluded, as she quickly assembled clean clothes for the children and brushed the dust off her one and only hat. And who could worry about such a thing now? If they were going to make the curtain, they had to leave at once. Simon assured her it would be fastest to walk, since the streets around the theatre got so congested in the evenings that even the bus could scarcely pass. Nor was there time to feed the children a proper dinner, and the kitchen was all out of biscuits. Penelope trusted that the excitement on stage would be enough to engage their attention until snacks could be provided after the show. Moon, 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 the children counted as they marched along. Penelope assumed they were thinking of the circled dates in Lord Frederick's almanac. But no, they were passing one of those long, rectangular, neoclassical buildings one so often saw in London, with scores of windows all in a row. Each window framed a reflection of the moon, which had risen even as they walked. It was as full as a moon could be, round as a dinner plate and glowing with an eerie blue-white light. "Say, children," said Simon, after the moon, moon, moon chant began to grow tiresome, "I know another song you might like. It's about Drury Lane, and we're on our way to Drury Lane Theatre. I'll teach it to you." He did, and now the children sang, "Do you know the Muffa-woo, the Muffa-woo, the Muffa-woo? Do you know the Muffa-woo who lives on Drury Lane? Woof!" all the way to the theatre. Penelope did not join it. She kept glancing up at the moon and thinking of Lord Frederick and his odd behavior. She thought of the lone Hicksby's guidebook, the fictitious Judge Quincy, and the mysterious danger Miss Mortimer had warned her about. She thought of the incorrigible children's unusual black background, and the long-lost Lumleys, too. Penelope had already done quite a bit of math that day, between teaching the children how to figure the area of a triangle and performing a thorough review of the multiplication tables. But at the moment, she only longed to put 2 and 2 together, as the saying goes, and come up with some sort of answer that made sense. Alas, the solution was not yet clear. There was a ruckus outside of the lobby of the Drury Lane Theatre, and it had nothing to do with muffins. "Does anyone need a ticket?" Lady Constance Ashton cried plaintively. "For my husband was taken ill at dinner and went home, or so he says. Personally, I'm not sure I believe it, for he was completely fine this morning. I think he simply doesn't care about attending the theatre. No doubt he would rather be at his club. Ticket? Ticket, anyone? It's a premiere, and you would get to sit with me, Lady Constance Ashton of Ashton Place. Anyone?" Perhaps it was because Lady Constance's fulcrum of fortune had taken a nosedive, or perhaps it was the foolish pirate outfit. But for whatever reason, and despite the desirability of the ticket, Lady Constance found no takers. However, she was on the receiving end of many curious, pitying, and disdainful looks. "That's my mistress, Lady Ashton," Penelope whispered to Simon. They were still outside the theatre, hidden by the crowd, but close enough to witness this sorry spectacle. "Let's wait here a moment until she takes her seat." "All right," said Simon. "But she looks like she's lost at sea. Oughtn't we go over and tow her back to shore, so to speak? Maybe we could jolly her up a bit." Penelope sighed and remembered how she had tried and failed to befriend the lady in the past. "Your suggestion is very kind, but I'm afraid things are never so simple with Lady Constance." The children started gesturing wildly and howling. "Lady Woo!" they cried. Penelope turned, but Simon saw her first. "Say, it's Madame Ionesco!" he exclaimed. The semi-toothless old soothsayer had set up shop in the narrow alley that led to the theater stage door. At the moment, she was reading the palm of a man who was either a pirate or an actor dressed as one. Judging from his expression, the news from the spirit world was not good. Even so, Madame Ionesco stayed in firm possession of his one hand, while he dug into the pocket of his breeches with the other. Finally, he produced some golden, or were they gold-painted, doubloons, which she examined thoroughly before accepting. "Aloud!" Beowulf howled, rather loudly. Madame Ionesco looked up and saw the children. Quickly, she extinguished her burning pots of incense and began packing up her tools. Her fortune-telling cards and her crystal ball, her drawstring bag filled with carved ruins and the bleached bones of small, unlucky animals. "She's leaving. We must speak to her." Penelope tried to dash towards her, but the theater-going masses were like a tide pushing in the other direction. Clang, clang! An usher rang a handbell to get the crowd's attention, and then he shouted, "Last call for Pirates on Holiday! The show is about to begin! All ticket holders into the theater!" Simon shoved 4 tickets into Penelope's hand, keeping one for himself. "Miss Lumley, you and the children take your seats. All follow Madame Ionesco and make arrangements for us to meet her after the performance." The crowd surged towards the doors. Penelope struggled to keep the children near her. "But what about Pirates on Holiday?" Simon glanced over his shoulder. Madame Ionesco had folded up her stool and was now scurrying down the street. In a moment she would be gone. "What this woman knows is important, isn't it?" It may be, but it would be a pity for you to miss the show. You did procure the tickets after all." Simon shook his head. "I've seen plenty of shows, but you haven't. I'll catch the fortune teller. You and the children enjoy the play. Don't worry, Miss Lumley. I'll be back before intermission." Penelope watched anxiously as he fought his way against the throng. "I hope nothing untoward happens to him this time," she thought. "After all, he's only recently out of prison." Clang, clang! "All ticket holders into the theater! Last call!" The crowd rushing into the theater was like one of those strong beach currents that you can only swim along, unless it decides to toss you willy-nilly into the sand. Penelope and the Incorrigibles were caught and swept inside. They clung fast to one another, just as they had in Euston Station on the day they arrived in London. The usher looked skeptical when Penelope and the children presented tickets that read Royal Box, but he handed them programs and waved them on. Up the stairs they climbed, until another usher directed them to walk down a side aisle and through a small door. They found themselves in a private compartment of upholstered seats, almost like a train compartment, but open on one side so they could watch the show, and so near the front of the auditorium as to be nearly on top of the stage. From this crow's nest, Penelope could see everyone in the audience, and everyone could see her, she realized in dismay. It would be bad enough for Lady Constance to discover her poor, bright employee and 3 wild wards at the theater. It would be another degree of calamity altogether for the lady to realize that they had the best seats in the house. Penelope slouched down in her seat, held up her program to shield her face, and hoped the show would begin soon. Alas, the Incorrigibles were far too excited to hide behind programs. Alexander had brought his compass and was using it to determine the orientation of the stage. Ever interested in art, Beowulf was transfixed by the murals painted on the ceilings of the theater, which featured adorable winged cherubs playing golden harps. Cassiopeia, whose usual bedtime was fast approaching, yawned and stretched herself out across her seat and the empty one next to it, waiting for Simon. "Castlewolf tired," she complained. "Hungry, no dinner, want snack." "See, Castlewolf?" Beowulf pointed upward. "Pigeons. Yum." Penelope looked up, too, and saw the plump, tasty-looking cherubs with their bird-like wings. "Oh, dear me, they're not pigeons at all," she began to scold. But before more could be said, the footlights were lit, the curtains rose, and the Pirates on Holiday began. So this was the professional London theatre. From the opening notes played by the orchestra, it was as if they'd been whisked to another world. The actors were good as Leeds Thespians on Demand, the popular troupe Lady Constance had hired to perform at the disastrous holiday ball. The plot was comical and terribly convoluted, with pirates who were actually noblemen in disguise, noblemen who were being impersonated by pirates, several different intersecting love stories, a hunt for stolen treasure, and of course, eye patches, scabbards, and peg legs galore. It was, in a word, spectacular. Penelope hadn't been thoroughly entertained since reading Jump, Rainbow, Jump for the first time. That was a wonderful story, too, about how dear sweet Rainbow got over his fear of jumping. But this was entertainment of a different stripe altogether. For on top of all the other delights unfolding on the stage, every now and then the pirates burst into song. Rainbow could whinny quite prettily on command, and always came trotting up when Edith Ann whistled, God Save the Queen, but it was hardly the same thing.
"Lamawoo,"
whispered Cassiopeia.
"Hungry! No dinner! Want a snack now!"
Yum, yum, said Beowulf, gazing up at the mural. Alexander used his compass to navigate. Tasty cherub birds, north by northwest. Shh, Penelope said, unable to tear her eyes from the stage. We shall purchase snacks at the interval. Now let's listen to the play. And they did, more or less, and everything proceeded swimmingly until scene 3, when a new actor made his entrance. It might have been a her, actually, but it was impossible for Penelope to tell, for reasons about to be revealed. The new actor was no more than a foot tall, not counting his or her tail. In bright green with scarlet and yellow markings. The garish-colored creature was perched on the first mate's shoulder. It was, in fact, a parrot. Surely it's only a prop parrot, Penelope told herself. But then the creature squawked and batted its wings. Nervously, it twitched its head around as the lights hit it.
"Ahoy, matey!"
it croaked, blinking at the audience.
"Caw, caw!"
Suddenly alert, Cassiopeia tugged on Penelope's sleeve. Snack? She whispered eagerly, her eyes glued to the stage. It is not a snack, Penelope whispered back, as firmly as a person can't whisper. It is an actor. The parrot is a professional thespian, highly trained. Penelope was righter than she knew. For much as actors specialize in pretending to be that which they are not, often, with the use of clever disguises, noses made of putty, and inscrutable accents, this parrot, too, was pretending. It was a real parrot, make no mistake, but it was not a pirate's parrot. It was a thespian parrot, and no parrot in the wild was likely to know how to emote in quite the way this one did.
"Ahoy, matey! Caw, caw! Ahoy, ahoy!"
Was Penelope imagining it? Was the parrot, this thespian parrot, impersonating a pirate's parrot with a miniature costume eye patch covering one beady little bird eye? Was this talented avian of the stage howling? Ahoy! Ahoy! Children, come with me, she ordered as she stood up and unceremoniously dragged the 3 incorrigibles from their seat. Alexander was puzzled. Show not over, Lamawoo. True, but it is near the intermission, and if we go now, we will be first in line for biscuits on sale in the lobby. Try as she might, she couldn't find the exit to the royal box in the dark. Instead, she clambered over the side. The children were much better climbers than she was and leapt over nimbly. All 4 of them landed with a thud in row K of the orchestra section, which was, of course, occupied. Sit down, miss, you're blocking the stage. Oh, watch your step, lady, that was my foot. With uncharacteristic rudeness, Penelope ignored the complaints of her fellow theater-goers, for the bizarre screeches emanating from the stage were getting louder and wolfier every minute. Ahoy! Ahoy! Even as Penelope dragged and cajoled them up the aisle, the eyes of the incorrigibles remained riveted on the inexplicable bird, with its canine howls and bright green plumage, miniature peg-leg, and rakish 3-cornered hat. Alexander, Beowulf, Cassiopeia, stay close. We must leave at once. Excuse me, pardon me, we must get through. But it was too late. Ahoy! The bird wailed. Caw, caw! Replied Cassiopeia with enthusiasm, flapping her arms like wings. Ow! Ahoy! Now the bird sounded confused. Beowulf joined in. Ow! Ahoy! Screamed the parrot in terror. From somewhere in the auditorium, Lady Constance Ashton stood up and yelled, Have I gone mad? Is those dreadful incorrigible children? Stop! Stop this instant! I'm developing the most excruciating headache! Ah! Now even Alexander could control himself no longer. Oh! Snacks, woo! Bellowed Cassiopeia, pointing at the bird. All three children dashed onto the stage, barking and growling and having what seemed to be a simply marvelous time. If the terrified parrot harbored any plans to continue its performance, they were now abandoned. The bird shook off its eye patch and tried to take flight. Alas, one of its legs was tethered by a long, thin cord to the corner of the actor pirate's shoulders. The poor bird flapped and flapped, cawed and screeched, but since it couldn't escape, all of its efforts merely created a flurry of green feathers flying here and there, with every move illuminated by the footlights. Now on stage, Alexander, Beowulf, and Cassiopeia did their best to catch the bird, which easily stayed out of reach. The pirate to whom the squawk box was attached bore the brunt of the abuse, as the parrot flapped in a panic around his head.
Green feathers!
Yelled Cassiopeia, batting the rain of plumage from her head.
Like man on train!
Will no one assist us? Penelope cried from the back of the theater. But then she remembered, as you no doubt will as well, the awful truth of the who-me syndrome. With so many people watching this catastrophe unfold, the odds that any one of them would offer to help were tragically slim. In fact, most of the audience seemed to think this sudden appearance on stage of three howling children was part of the show. They sat up straighter in their seats and took out their opera glasses so as not to miss any bit of the action. One of the pirates, a tall one with dark hair and an oddly shapeless nose, raised his sword high.
Alas, ye hearties! This ship has been stormed by blackguards, renegades, cutthroats, bilge rats who are yapping and barking like scurvy dogs. We'll brook none of that on my ship. Those howling sprogs will walk the plank or I'm not captain. Yar! The pirates roared, shaking their sabers to the rafters.
But he's not your captain or anyone else's, Penelope protested loudly from the aisle. He's an actor, not a very good one either, she added without thinking. A hush descended over the theater. Now Cassiopeia was standing on Beowulf's shoulders, stretching towards the bird. The parrot shrank as far from Cassiopeia's reach as it could, its claws digging deep into the scalp of the protesting actor to whom it was attached. Alexander, who alone among his siblings had realized he was now making his West End debut, spoke.
Pardon me, Captain,
he said in a clear and stage-worthy voice.
Why plank?
Because you scared me, parrot, you scurvy brat, the captain roared.
Get 'em, men!
The captain lunged. The children ran. The pirates, with swords in the air and the scent of rum on their collective breath, pursued. Oh, my heavens! Can it be? The hunt is on! Penelope cried. But not a soul heard her above the thunderous din of applause.